Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for the New Year GSSR, NA Edition. For the price of 15 paid quartz, you can pick one of 29 different banners, and you're guaranteed at least one of the 5-star servants on it. They throw in a grail too for good measure. An excellent addition to my Ushigozen fund. Takeru is excluded as the newest servant, but Draco's missing too. You see, as FGO's first playable beast, she's special and unique. Which is why they just ran her banner 30 times in a single year. Just JP things. As for your banner choices, they're divided by sex and NP type for the most part. Now here's the contentious part. I think only 7 of these are worth serious consideration. All the others either have no account building upside, or they have a single powerful servant weighed down by weaker banner mates. Let's start things off with the most valuable banner if you have none of the listed servants. So think of it as a newbie banner. This is the one with Castoria as the featured servant. She's the single highest priority pickup once you start playing FGO. You can slum it up with a friend Castoria and Jufu for a while, but you really want the option of running double Castoria, or running one at all in fights that lock you out of your friends list. She's the linchpin of both the Arts playstyle and the Immortal team, an absolutely essential pull. If you don't have her at all, you can either fish here or wait till early April to roll her the old-fashioned way. Scotty is the old quick type enabler, and while mono quick teams are fairly unfriendly for new players, you still want her to have access to the playstyle down the road. Unfortunately, NP levels on her tend to be wasted. Gate of Sky does do something and its attack buff scales off NP levels, but you rarely have charge to commit onto Scotty unless you're doing an extremely specialized anti-instant death setup. Rhinus is a strong supplementary 50% charger who's very handy to have around for the Grand Rider duel, a set of repeatable fights that lock you into a Rider monotype team. Supportive Riders are rare, and Rhinus is pretty much the cream of the crop in that department. The risk in this banner is that Qin Shi Huang is a major step down in terms of power. He's a self-buffing ruler who can intercept and null attacks with a taunt/invuln combo and also hit with crits. But he needs a lot of babysitting to function in this role, and at this point in time, the value of that skill set is questionable. Arch teams have plenty of defensive options and powerhouse attackers as it stands. But still, a 3/4 chance to get an account defining or powerhouse support? I'd take that risk. At least until I get any of them. Next up is the double Koyanskaya banner. This is another one that's amazing if you have none of the servants in the lineup. Or should I say if you're missing one specific assassin. Koyanskaya of Light is a meta-defining buster support, and going from NP0 to NP1, she's one of the most valuable pickups you can get. Unfortunately, she has an offensive Noble Phantasm that doesn't really do anything unless you're a massive Tama friend. So the second you get a single copy of Koyan Light, she becomes a landmine that you have to dodge. But even if you miss her on the first go-around, there are some nice pickups. Morgan is an Immortal Team Overcharge enabler at NP1, and she can scale into a strong generalist AoE attacker with extra copies. Melusine pulls double duty as a single target Arts and AoE Buster Lancer. Both applications are highly relevant, and getting her to high NP levels can save you a lot of trouble. She works in standard team building, 90++, boss killing, and a sufficiently powerful Melu is a viable, if not necessarily optimal way to do the Grand Lancer duel, which is an incredibly annoying fight to farm without specialized Grand Servants. Koyanskaya of Darkness is a bit weaker than the others in my book, but she has a combination of party charge, party buffs, and targeted overcharge that gives her multi-core team building potential, provided you can get enough of her. My third recommendation is the Miss Crane banner, or as I like to call it, the No-Lose banner. As long as you have none of the 3 servants at NP5, you can roll on this risk-free and get some decent value. Crane herself is a buffer whose Noble Phantasm ejects her into the backline, letting you rotate in more steroids over the course of a fight. And if you really want, you can even run her with K-Scope and then plug her back into the front line to get her effect twice. Her Noble Phantasm's attack buff scales with levels. Lady Avalon is an Arts Merlin who can act as either a straightforward buffer or a charge/healing engine for the coveted Immortal team. Leveling up Winds of Avalon primarily benefits the latter application by increasing both her health buff and your charge income. That leaves Van Gogh, who I'm just gonna call Van Gogh. She's nominally a Forerunner support who amps up their crits. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the general premise. What people found in practice is that the Forerunner who benefits the most from Van Gogh is Van Gogh herself. By running 2 of her, you can potentially trap enemies in a stunlock cycle while the Twin Terrors buff up uncontested and crit everything to death. Leveling up her Noble Phantasm increases the generic crit buff component, but letting her do more damage reduces the number of times you need to repeat her stunlock and indirectly leads to more stable fights. Unlike with your average attacker, there are very few servants that can compete with these 3 in their respective niches. Regular Merlin for Lady Avalon, and for a one-time deal, Summer Chloe in place of Miss Crane. But even in this, there are enough differences in how you'd use them that the redundancy doesn't feel wasted. Whereas if you pull one Jarcher and one Summer Musashi, you're not necessarily better off in a strategic sense. But let's say you really want a strong attacker. You already have the essential supports, or you have too many of the wrong ones to make the Castoria or Koyan banners worthwhile. This is where the other 4 banners come in. Number 1 for players with the essentials is the Zergtoria banner. The trio of Summer Castoria, Melusine, and Kenshin offer a ton of value, and until you get to NP5 in any of them, I'd say it's worth fishing in here. Having strong single-target attackers makes team building significantly easier. Zergtoria is the most busted of the bunch, doing comical amounts of damage to a huge array of enemies. Not only is she a frequent fixture in 90++ farming teams, but she also does outstanding damage to both the Part 2 finale raids and the Grand Berserker Heracles fight. One of the most overpowered servants in FGO history. Kenshin isn't quite that strong, but she's still a strong single-target ruler with a 50% battery and preemptive buff purge. Her ruler status also makes her quite strong in Ordeal Call 3 and 4. I went over a lot of the details in a recent servant guide, so look on the channel if you want to learn more about her. The dud here are the Trunk Sisters. Even if you need a single-target saber, getting them up to par is much too expensive to be worth pursuing for their moderate power. I'd just slum it up with Hokusai if you absolutely need an art saber, and go with someone like Yuri if you need a single-target saber in general. The former is available through Evocation, and you'll be seeing the latter very soon. The Ash the Savior banner is another high-octane choice. Kukulkan is ridiculous even at NP1, and Ash and Arquaid scale extremely well off additional NP levels, because they have anti-buffs tied to that stat, anti-chaotic and anti-evil respectively. Both are common among enemies and highly exploitable. The odd one out here is Tiamat, who's an okay servant but desperately wants to start at an already high NP level, even more so than her contemporaries. This one doesn't have a straight-up bad servant in the lineup, but I'd still be pretty miffed if I got an NP1 Tiamat out of this crew. If you're in the market for an AoE Ultra Generalist, the Summer Ibuki banner is the place to go. Ibuki herself is currently the cream of the crop AoE arts looper. Summer Melusine is a fair bit worse by comparison, but she's an adept meat grinder if you need someone to churn through trash mobs. I don't really like using her in 90++ due to her inflexibility though. Durga is a strong archer who suffers from the fact that within the next few weeks, Summer Musashi is going to get a buff that lets her mulch sabers without much resistance. That leaves Johanna, who's the least interesting of the bunch. She's a utility ruler / supportive attacker, and I found that while she does provide value just by sitting on the field, her low damage can actually make team building harder a lot of the time. Not a huge fan currently. If this all seems a bit questionable to you, it is, but we're quickly exhausting the really good banners for this GSSR, so if you'd rather hold off, I will note that we get Space Ereshkigal this anniversary, a new AoE Beast Generalist who slots well into 90++ team compositions, though I will warn you that her class interactions are different from Draco's. The last banner I'd consider is the least stable of them, the Ska crew. Skadoodle herself is a mammoth pull, whose value has continued to rise on the JP server thanks in no small part to that Grand Lancer fight I mentioned earlier. She's one of the best single-target options for that absolute chore of a battle. The combination of her upgraded NP and massive anti-divine power mod makes her an extreme threat to a common category of boss enemy. Meltrilis and Echon are solid pulls too. Melt's gotten the battery skill to bring her up to par, and during this year's Khazra drop event, she's due to get a full-on NP upgrade that sends her damage through the roof compared to her rival alter egos. Echon is a clunky but heavy-hitting berserker that can zero out good aligned sabers if you can find enough charge to keep her fed. A solid trio, but you have to weigh their value against the risk of pulling Okita or regular MHX, neither of whom are worth the trouble. I think of this one as a Hail Mary banner, if you have extremely uneven NP levels for the other options, like an NP5 that you have zero interest in taking to 120 with perfect depends. You may have noticed I excluded Summer Scotty and Oberon's banners from my recommendations. Both are extremely high-value servants, and if you're missing either, you may be tempted to go fishing. But both are on generally middle power banners, so despite their high potential reward, the risk is disproportionately high in my book. I would personally just wait for them to go on solo raid up and roll them the hard way. I don't know about you, but if I fished for Oberon and got Shingen, I'd be mighty unhappy. And while Romulus Q and Arjuna Alter can do work with enough NP levels, I'd consider them more legacy attackers than ones I'd deliberately build into at this point in time. Summer Scotty is in a similar position, though I'd say the average power of her banner is ever so slightly higher thanks to the presence of Huya and Zhuo. So, which banner will you roll on? Let me know down below in the comments. This weekend I'll also be live on twitch.tv/Finotaisen at 3 PM Pacific time. On Saturday I'll be playing Persona 3 Portable, and on Sunday I'll either be going for another Takeru or maybe even a Grand Saber on JP. We'll see. Till next time.